Well, folks, in today's video, we're going to be testing out all these different locomotives I picked up off of eBay. I purchased this entire box of locomotives a few months ago for 50 bucks, and I have no idea what the condition of any of these locomotives are. So we're going to test them all out today. We're going to figure out what works, what needs work, and yeah, overall, we'll just see what I exactly got, because for the price, I think it was a pretty good deal. But I'm really curious to see if any of them will start. So let's get started. Anyway, we'll begin with this little General Electric switcher. This is an AHM, and these things tend to be pretty tough. They're very simple locomotives, so I would put some money on this one. I suspect it is going to fire up. Anyway, let's give it some power here and see if it does anything. Well, it sounds like we definitely have a working motor. But unfortunately, this engine sounds like it has some sort of a transmission issue. So there's probably a gear or something. You can actually see right there, it looks like the worm gear is lower than the gear it's supposed to be touching. So I think that's the problem with this locomotive. So we might be able to get this one running again. I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, let's test out this sharknose locomotive. This is an old Tyco Power Torque. These are not terribly reliable, but they're usually not too difficult to fix. I'd bet this one won't start, but you never know. Sometimes you're lucky with them. It is a really cool looking engine, I will say that about it. And I'm definitely hearing something from the motor. Give it a little more power here. It's clearly trying to go, but yeah, I think it's got dried lubricants or something like that in it. It looked like we had a working headlight too, so yeah, overall this one's definitely not hopeless. This right here is a 1980s era Bachmann locomotive. These tend to be moderately reliable. A lot of them have cracked nylon gears, but I think this one's actually got a decent chance of starting. So let's set it up and see if it will do anything for us. Yeah, we got a runner. Look at that. Let's try to get that handrail up before we destroy it. That's not half bad. It doesn't even have cracked gears. Well, we got a lucky one there. We'll try out this switcher right here. This is a Penn Line. I'm not as familiar with these as a lot of other brands. This is certainly a much older locomotive in comparison to the other ones. It's probably made in about the early 60s. But you never know, it might go. Find a lot of these older era locomotives with the brass wheels have a tendency to not start just because the brass oxidizes pretty easily. But we'll give it some power anyway and see if it will do anything. And so far nothing from this one. We're also not getting any current draw on the controller, so this thing doesn't seem to be picking up any power. And again, I would suspect that it's an oxidization issue, so this one's going to need a little bit of work before it can run again. But it will serve all the West again. Why don't we try out this locomotive? I believe this is a very archaic lifelike locomotive. These older lifelikes are actually not bad. They were based off the Varney locomotives because lifelike was actually created out of Varney. So these are actually not the worst drives out there. Whether or not it will start or not, well, I think it's a good 50-50 chance, but let's find out. Alright, so we're hearing sounds from the motor, but the engine's not going, so it seems like something is locked up. But the fact that it is making noise is certainly a good sign. I think the gearbox is probably just seized for whatever reason. Could be full of dust and hair, could have dried lubricant in it, who knows. But in any case, I'm pretty confident with a bit of work we'll be able to get that one running again. This right here is an Athern blue box locomotive. Seems to have one of those old Lionel joiners stuck to it. I don't know what's going on with that. This one's missing a wheel, but the Athern Blue Box engines tend to be really tough, so I bet this thing is going to start. It might not be able to stay on the track, though. Let's test it out. Alright, I think that's about as best as we'll be able to get it on the track. And yeah, just as I suspected, it is running. So that's not bad. I'm sure if we got this thing a wheel, which really wouldn't be too hard to come by, this would be a fine runner. Bit of fresh oil would probably help it too, but yeah, overall we've got another runner. Just needs a little bit of work. This is another old Athern. It might be a blue box. It's one of the older ones, though. This would have been, I think, early 60s era. These tend to be fairly reliable, too. But you never know. Let's give it some power. We don't seem to be getting anything. There's no current draw on the controller. And yeah, overall we're just not hearing anything from the motor, so I suspect this engine has some sort of an electrical problem. So that one's going to need a bit of work. Let's pull this one out here. It's one of those 80s chrome Bachmann locomotives. Just like the other Bachmann engine we tested, these are very simplistic locomotives, so I'd give this one a decent chance of starting. Let's test it out here. Looks like somebody has opened this up. You can see there's actually a wire for the motor outside the shell, which is not so great. But it does run. Let's bring it back here. Yeah, it definitely sounds like it's strained a tiny bit, so I wouldn't be surprised if it needs a bit of a cleaning. But yeah, overall, it doesn't run too bad. It sounds like the gears are good on it too, which is kind of rare for these old Bachmanns. Both the Santa Fe's from Bachmann. It's funny, they were both the ones that seem to want to kick. Try this thing out. I think it's a U-boat. This is an Athern Blue Box. I'd give this a pretty good shot at running. Let's test it out here. Oh, I heard something. Oh, this is trying to go. Let's give it full power. Oh, it's moving. It's coming back to life. I think this thing just has not been running a really long time. And all the metal components are just covered in a thin layer of oxidization, and as we move it, we're actually wearing that down. Yeah, you can hear it starting to come back. Well, this engine definitely has some sort of an electrical issue, but I think it's certainly safe to call it a runner. So yeah, with a little bit of extra work, I'm sure we could turn this into a fine runner, but we're already off to a great start. And the thing I find kind of exciting about this locomotive is that it's unpainted, so we could pretty much do anything with it at some point. It's going to make a fun project. Next off, I guess we'll try out this thing. It's going to be a little bit more difficult since the drive has kind of come apart, but I might still start just like this if we position everything properly. The important thing is that we get the metal wheels on opposite sides so that it can pick up from both rails. I'd give this one a lower chance just because of the condition it's in. These old Tyco Manoas are pretty tough, so you never know. Let's give it a bit of power. So far, nothing. I thought I heard something. Well, I'll be darned. These things are so tough. They really did build them well. It's completely junked, but it's certainly not stopping it from going. It's even running somewhat decently, too. Yeah, look at that. It's even doing a low speed. So, yeah, wow. I'm very impressed by that. This one just needs a little bit of reassembly, and this could be a fine runner. Next up, we'll test out this Baltimore and Ohio locomotive. This is a really old Athern locomotive. I think this would be from about the mid-50s. I could be slightly wrong on the dates. These are a little bit more fickle in my experience, but I'd still give this a decent shot of running. So let's set it up here and see if it will do anything. Well, it sounds like the motor and everything is going, and the drive is to some extent, but the back wheels, as you can see, are locked up. So something is wrong with the rear drive, and considering it's missing parts, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody did something to it. So yeah, we might be able to fix this one up, but it is technically a runner. I guess we'll test this one out. This is another old Penn Line locomotive. Don't know really what's going on with the drive on this one. I'm, again, not as familiar with the Penn Line, so I'm a little unsure as to whether or not this one's going to do anything. Well, let's find out. Oh. All right. It's a little bit loud. It definitely needs some oil, but that is most definitely a runner. Quite pleased with that. And yeah, then finally we got the Amtrak locomotive. This is another old Athern. It doesn't look to be in the greatest shape. You just see the wheels are kind of oxidized there, but it is an Athern blue box, so I'd give this one 75% chance of starting. I'll always lean more on the side of starting with the old blue boxes just because they're so darn tough. Anyway. Nothing. Well, looks like my bet on this one was quite wrong. We are not getting any current drawn. Just a second ago, it sounded like we actually had a short circuit, so I'm not entirely sure what's going on with this locomotive. Again, it does look to be in slightly rough shape. And you just never know if there is some sort of an electrical issue on the inside. Just judging by the wheels, I'd say this probably has not been run in a really long time. But these things are so easy to work on. I'm very confident we'll be able to get this locomotive running again. Anyway, that was testing all these various locomotives I got from eBay. I hope you all enjoyed. I certainly enjoyed testing them out. I always find it exciting to see, what these things do. And yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy. I mean, we managed to get pretty much 8 runners out of this. And, we got a few duds, but with a bit of work, I suspect we'll be able to get these all running as well. Anyways, with that, I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. Hey, Nerf Cat, have you subscribed to SMT Mainline on YouTube?